Hello, welcome to the Yale School of Management MBA for Executives webinar with a focus on sustainability with Dr. Todd Court. My name is Maria Statsmani-Marquez and I serve as the Associate Director of Admissions. And our aim today is really to provide a very brief overview of the program, but really to have a much deeper conversation about the sustainability focus area. And so for those of you who have not ever learned about our program online, I would encourage you to check out one of our previously recorded webinars because I am going to go quite briefly over the entire program, but we have other resources online that will be helpful for you to learn a little bit more. So without further ado, I wanted to thank you, Todd, for being here, and I wanted to share a little bit about your role. So Todd currently serves as the faculty director to the sustainability focus area with the MBA for Executives program, which means he curates the curriculum, works with faculty, and also helps to bring in some outstanding speakers for the colloquium series. There's probably a number of other things that you do in light of that work. He also has an appointment at the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, along with the Center for Business and the Environment at Yale. But I know your research is largely connected to corporate social responsibility and also sustainable finance. So I'd be really interested to hear a little bit more about your role and the work that you do.
Yeah. My role here at the Executive MBA, as you say, is to ensure that people who come into the program walk out knowing what it means, what sustainability means for businesses and for finance going forward. Really, sustainability has become fairly fundamental to business practice today. If companies are not addressing environmental, social, broader economic issues today, then they're exposing themselves to greater risks. They're exposing themselves to higher cost of capital. We're entering a new kind of economic age, so it's pretty fundamental. My particular research interests and the center that I co-direct, Center for Business and Environment, is primarily interested in the barriers between businesses and sustainable practice and how we reduce those barriers through market economics, through better business management practices, through new finance models, et cetera. There's an enormous amount of energy and activity going on here at the School of Management and then broadly around Yale in this area. So it's almost too much to mention.
Yeah, and definitely probably in 45 minutes. So, well, to move forward, thank you so much. We're going to talk a little bit about the program and the School of Management, which our mission is to educate leaders for business and society. And so we firmly believe in this mission. This is kind of our call to action here at the school. And you can hear this mission widely repeated from our staff, faculty, our alumni, and our current students. These are people who really believe in purpose, in meaning at work, but also in doing good for their organization and their broader communities. In order to do that, we feel like we have three very strategic objectives in order to get there. And one is to ensure that Yale is really the Yale School of Management is the most integrated business school with its larger university, that it is the most global U.S. business school, and that it can be really the best source of leaders across all industries and sectors. And so while we're giving the brief overview and through this time, I would encourage you to really consider what we're saying as it relates to these objectives, but also to the mission. And so here's a beautiful photo of the Yale School of Management, and excuse me, it is a broader photo of the entire university, and the reason it's here is because we basically access resources across the university. So we have professors who come from the Yale School of Drama, from the School of Medicine, School of Public Health, faculty from the law school as well. And so this is really an opportunity for us to share resources. And there are so many, like you just mentioned, there's so many resources across campus that students are able to tap into and that schools are able to collaborate on. So we'll talk a little bit further about the Center for Business and the Environment and the collaboration between the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies and also the School of Management. And so while Yale University as a whole is actually quite old, it's over 300 years old, the School of Management is new. It was founded in the 1970s and really with a really compelling and unique mission. And so I think the first degree that was created was the Masters of Public and Private Management. And so you can see that even at the time of its creation, it was really balancing both of the sectors. And so that's since then been transitioned into the MBA. But we've not ever held on to very traditional ways of doing things. So we're quite innovative. Curriculum has changed over the course of the last 10 years into the integrated core curriculum, which is really, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward, but it's a new way to imagine business school education. And I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about that as well.
Yeah, just to jump in a little bit, there's that connection between the university and the School of Management is sustainability is its core, it's fundamental to business today, but it's also inherently multidisciplinary. So, for example, when we talk about access to healthcare, we have folks at the School of Public Health, we have folks at the School of Environmental Studies, people in the innovation entrepreneurship space, people in the business school. We're all working together either through centers, through student independent study projects, through research projects around these topics that are inherently sustainability in nature. So it's a focus area within the executive MBA that has so many connections around the university. And one of the I think the benefits of studying here at this university is the ability to make those connections even through at the executive MBA level. So that's you mentioned the Center for Business and Environment. It's one of the oldest cross-school centers in the world, actually. It's been around for over 30 years, formed between the School of Management and the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. And it is the home for a lot of the student interest in the space. In fact, most of what we do at the center is driven by student interests, as opposed to a lot of other centers that will be faculty research driven. So students have told us they're interested in food sustainability and energy transitions and public health and areas in sustainability, and that's where the center goes, including some of the executive MBA students and their interests have really guided where we take the center.
Wow, it sounds like there's a lot of flexibility and also a way of being nimble in the space to see what kind of relevant issues are coming up from students' perspectives. I think that's a really unique way of running a center.
Yeah, it was started. It was started by students between these two, and it was between these two schools. And clearly, I'm having microphone difficulties.
That's okay. Yeah.
It was started by students between the two schools, and it's always kind of followed that path. There's a cohort of students that are interested in environment and business, and they've really driven our direction over time.
Wow. Thank you. And we'll be sure to share more with you about the Center for Business and the Environment in the last slide. We'll give you some ways in which you can get in touch with that center. So to kind of go through what the MBA for Executives program looks like logistically, it is a 22-month program. Your time on campus would be 4 weeks, along with an every other weekend schedule. So in your first year, you have a 2-week residency period that kicks off your time here with the program. And then following that, in your second year, you will go to a global network study abroad for a week long, and we'll share more about that down the road. And then also to kick off your second year, you have another week in residence. So it's 22 months total, but a really flexible schedule for people who have very busy professional lives and other commitments outside of that. The way the weekend is set up is classes start on Friday at 9 a.m. and end typically around 5:30. On Saturday, they start at 8 and end at about 3 o'clock. What you'll see there is that there are 4 different classes every weekend, along with colloquium and also some optional workshops that are really well curated by our assistant director. of Academic Affairs, and we'll bring in people like Zoe Chance, who's from Yale SOM, to talk about influence, and then bring others from across Yale, like Mark Brackett, who is at the Center for Emotional Intelligence, and so he'll give a workshop to our students on innovation and understanding EQ. And then we also make sure that we're providing some opportunities for students to really get a broader sense of Yale through the cross-campus experiences. So we're going to the planetarium in a few weeks. We just recently got back from a hockey game. Probably all the better that we won that game, so some good experiences. But I know the lunchtime period can also be pretty full. Students will often meet with their faculty directors, or there'll be a speaker outside of the colloquium series that's there. And so, Todd, I know that you've hosted a few lunches with some of our students, and I'm wondering, what is the impetus there, and kind of what's the conversation like?
See, the lunch discussions it's a very informal space, and it's focused on where students have particular questions or challenges in sustainability, because it's a sustainability lunch. So we've had a series of them. One, for example, was students are particularly interested in career pathways from sustainability or coming out of a sustainability program, because it's a broad area. You can do a lot of things in sustainability. It's different than the other tracks in that way. So we spent a lunch talking about, what are typical career paths coming out, what are either the skill sets or the particular knowledge sets that might be relevant if you wanted to pick one of those career paths, and then setting students up with, what are the, how to proceed, what are the connection points of the networks that are worth establishing, where could they explore for more information. So that was one. Occasionally we'll bring in not a speaker because it's very informal, but we'll bring in someone who is addressing those challenges that the students nominate. So one of the questions we've had from students over the years has been, how do you compare environmental performance in a business against financial performance? That's a sticky question and something that's been being actively worked on. So our last lunchtime colloquium, lunchtime talk, we brought in a company that is doing that they are accounting for environmental and social aspects and valuing it, and what are the kind of strengths and weaknesses of their approach, where have they struggled to do it, where has it been successful, and where has their board of directors taken it. So the lunchtime conversation is really about what are students struggling with in some way, fashion, or another, life, curriculum, and trying to address that through a conversation.
It's nice to hear that theme from CBA, and that having a lot of student-led initiatives to also driving this conversation. I think that's really what, that's a part of the value of having access, such great access to, faculty directors and others within your network.
Yeah, we have, or I have, and the center has this real deep philosophy that we're all, as a society, we're working around these solutions together. There's no such thing as a solution in sustainability. This is about systems-based solutions, about collaboration, network. So it's very natural for us to rely and listen to students to say, here's where we feel the solutions are, and to support that. Just as much as we provide, the content and curriculum for them to formulate those questions more coherently.
Thank you. So in thinking about the curriculum, this is a very broad overview of what it might look like. So 75% of the curriculum is general management, where you take our very distinctive integrated core curriculum and some advanced management courses, and then the other 25% with the colloquium and the 6 courses within sustainability are the area of focus. I do want to mention that while this is a topic of sustainability, the other 2 focus areas that we have are healthcare and asset management. So throughout the general management portion of the class, you are in a larger room with 75 students who are maybe coming from backgrounds in finance or also in healthcare. The great area, the self-directed study, is something that we'll want to speak to a little bit. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because the self-directed study often involves faculty supervision or also some level of approval of an independent research project. So I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to talk about what some of those projects have been and just to share a little bit more about that.
I've been the faculty director for a year now, almost a year. So I had the opportunity to work with the students this year, and then in previous years as a faculty member in the teaching of the sustainability curriculum, I interacted with a couple of other students as well in past years. I'd say that one of there's two trends in the independent studies that students have brought forward. One trend is students that are trying to solve a particular challenge in their existing company. So we had one independent study, for example, which I loved just because of the topic area. It was on their company had just acquired a smaller brand that had a real kind of deep sustainability roots to it. You know, it was locally sourced, happened to be whiskey, organic ingredients, etc. And how can a very large spirits company that's just acquired a small brand develop a marketing strategy that both builds on that kind of core strength, that sustainability added value within a larger organization, and the scale, the cost efficiencies that brings. What does that marketing strategy look like? So that was an example of kind of working a sustainability challenge that was existing within a company. And then we also have the second trend as students that are thinking of going out on their own in some fashion or other. They're very entrepreneurial in spirit, and they see a challenge that they particularly want to address. And we've had again, in past years, we had a student that was trying to develop a sustainable real estate portfolio in the United States. And they're particularly interested in how climate change risk would impact on a real estate portfolio that they would be developing and implementing. And so that was their independent study, was I need to understand the metrics of climate risk on real estate portfolios in different regions of the United States. And it was directly applicable to the business that he was undertaking when he left. So those are kind of the two tracks. But overall, they're always business and sustainability independent studies. They involve a substantial amount of work and effort and research, but the outputs are outstanding.
Yeah, thank you. Those are interesting for me to hear too, just from a admissions perspective, to learn more about what students are doing once they're actually here and taking on those studies. Along with that, we do have some other opportunities within the self-directed study. There's other electives and other entrepreneurial ventures that you can jump into. Please go to our website to read more about that. This is really kind of the biggest piece of the Yale School of Management curriculum. It's the integrated core, and what makes it unique is that you're actually being taught stakeholder perspective. So these, the titles that you see here are the titles of the courses. They run from the employee, which is coming from like an HR perspective, also thinking about how you scale and grow and how that might affect employees, but also what are the ways in which you motivate and recognize employees through different levels of promotion and understanding hierarchies and organizational structures. On the other side, you might take a class called Sourcing and Managing Funds. And so while this is one of the stakeholder perspectives, you're actually utilizing functional aspects like finance and strategy and accounting and operations. And this course in particular is co-taught. And so it's really interesting because each of the professors will bring a certain expertise to the class, and what is taught here is actually woven throughout the rest of the integrated curriculum. So it's as if one course is actually building upon the other, so that students are really getting a very broad overview of what an organization, different perspectives within the organization. And the idea here is that at the end of the day, as an executive or somebody who might be leading at the highest levels, you have an understanding about the different constituencies, and making sure that while not all needs are always met, but that you're able to understand each of the perspectives as you're growing the organization. So this is really fundamental to who we are, and I think it's quite innovative. I'd be curious to hear from you how what you've noticed about students who have taken the integrated core curriculum as they then come into the sustainability courses.
Yeah, well, let me actually back up a little bit, because I have just a slight personal anecdote. The integrated core is the reason that I'm here. This is such a compelling model when we talk about business education and sustainability, because sustainability is fundamentally driven by stakeholder perspectives. Like, I cannot understand what is a significant or material environmental or social issue unless I understand the stakeholders and their perception that they bring to that issue. As a business, as an investor, if I'm trying to establish risk, opportunity, where the market is going, any of those questions depend on the stakeholder perceptions that are driving it. When I was looking at a system or schools to teach at, this idea that the core of the business is taught from the stakeholder perspective is such a natural feed into a sustainability curriculum in the second year. So that was really compelling for me. At the same time, the core curriculum is still a core curriculum. It's not, we're going to wave our hands at something. We're still teaching the fundamentals of a business education. That is also important to a sustainability education. I can't teach students how to assess risk to a company from climate change if I don't know how to calculate the net present value of an investment, the cost of capital that would be involved with it, why discount rates might change as a result of climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those fundamentals are also important. So this was really compelling for me. And so it's probably not surprising to hear that the students hopefully are seeing that transition as well, because we structured the sustainability curriculum around that idea, that we start with stakeholders and the fundamentals of business, accounting, finance, et cetera, and then we move into sustainability and how we apply those. I can give a couple of specific examples where we build on it. So, for example, we have an operations class in the integrated core. And we then, in the sustainability curriculum, dive into management of operations when you throw in these sticky sustainability challenges. So we have the corporate environmental management strategy class where we discuss the types of business issues in sustainability that need to be managed. And then we have sustainable operations where we dive into specific implementation challenges around those. We do the same thing around valuation of corporations, which I think I already discussed. So that transition is built to be organic in the way that we've approached it. So.
Yeah, I kind of skipped forward through a number of different slides while you were talking to kind of give a presentation, an example of what are the different classes, because I'm also looking at the time here and thinking about, I want to...
Chatty.
No, you're not chatty. I've actually been asking a lot of questions. So, but I did want to take a deeper dive at some of these courses. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about the faculty that you bring in, since I'm really enjoying and appreciating and understanding how the integrated core curriculum, which is so what we do here at Yale School of Management, is really well aligned with sustainability. So if you wouldn't mind chatting more about the faculty you bring in. And
people can see the courses that we do in the sustainability track. I had a couple of purposes when structuring this, the curriculum. So the first purpose was to structure these sustainability issues kind of fit into categories. There's core sustainability issues that every business leader anywhere in any field needs to understand. If you don't understand integrated risk management today, you just won't be successful. So that's in the core. Then there's emerging issues in sustainability. This is where we think of like climate change, poverty, inequality, kind of the big global trends that people hear about and are interested in trying to solve. Those, I call those emerging because we know that they're relevant to businesses. We know businesses have to deal with them, but the pathway to undertake that is still evolving, whether it's going to be regulation, whether it's going to be different types of investment, et cetera. That's where these courses sit, is on those emerging issues and how we're learning to deal with them, manage them, finance them, et cetera. And then we have the third category is kind of new issues, which they're out there on the radar, but we're not even sure if they're material to the business yet. And those we put into kind of the extracurricular activities. We do symposium and research opportunities, and there's centers that are thinking about those. So these courses sit in that center section. we know they're important. Just we're still figuring out how to manage them. The second thing I wanted to do was, because sustainability is such a multi-stakeholder space, I wanted to make sure that we brought in a lot of different voices as the faculty members. So I purposely structured it around, we have 2 School of Management faculty that teach in the curriculum. We have 2 faculty from outside of the School of Management. It's technically 3, but 2 of them teach in one class. So we have 2 from two professors from the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies that teach in the Management Strategy course, and then we have a law school professor that teaches climate change law and policy. And then the final 2 were practitioners, although both of them also have an exceptional university level teaching, but they've been in the field doing these activities for decades. So I wanted to make sure that we had a diversity of perspectives coming in and teaching. Just very quickly, the Sustainability Systems is our framing course, where we talk about what is sustainability, why it's important to business, what are we talking about when we're, before we dive into all the details, what are the tools, frameworks that are available today. And then we go into 3 tracks. We have the management track within sustainability, where we have corporate environmental management strategy and sustainable operations. We have the finance track, sustainable finance, and the corporate finance and risk management. And then we have the law and policy. This is an enormous area. We had to decide to focus, so we picked climate change because law and policy are the most evolved in that space. Plus, Doug Kaiser is just an amazing teacher and individual to have in the faculty. So that's how we organized it. So the idea is that people graduate with, not only do I know the topic area and how it can be applied, but I know how to manage risk, find opportunities, and run a business with sustainability in mind. I know how to find and construct financial deals that have sustainability as a curriculum or as a component, and I understand the context around climate change and how policy and regulation guide those businesses.
That is so fascinating that you had basically split them up into 3 different parts, because I think that's a nuance that, I as an admissions officer, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's how you were conceptualizing it. So it's so important to hear that from you. So thank you. And the other part of that is, in thinking about your role with sustainable finance, I know that this is a new course that has come up, and so I was curious to hear more about how you decided to add that as a part of the curriculum.
Yeah, it's for those of you online. We just had the first year. This last year was our first year of sustainable finance in the executive MBA. We had done it the previous year in the full-time MBA, and the instructor is Kerry Krasinski, and he and I teach that course to the full-time MBA students. The first year we taught it, it was overwhelmingly popular. It shocked all of us. We had a room for 30 people. We had 80 people apply. We were stuck. And it was clear that that an understanding of the financial mechanisms that are used for businesses that want to be more sustainable, that want to address environmental, social, economic aspects, those finance mechanisms are compelling. They're important, and they're still in their nascency in a lot of ways. So it covers everything from new fixed income instruments like green bonds, environmental and social impact bonds, municipal bond issuances, new stipulations by lenders, all the way to private equity, and how we construct private equity deals that have environmental or social metrics as part of the performance criteria for investors, and everything in between. And then we take those those categories of financial vehicles, and in the next course we apply them to a specific sector within the corporate setting to say, how would a company access that kind of finance? What do you have to demonstrate to investors in order to access that type of finance?
So popularity, and
popularity
also content.
But it's hard to say, I'm going to manage my company more sustainably if no one's going to put money behind it. So the 2 tracks really need to go side by side.
Thank you. Thanks. So there is something that is new to our program as well. Is we're hosting the second Impact Investing Conference, and that's led fully by our MBA for Executive students, along with the Asset Management faculty and the IFC, which is the International Finance Commission. Can you help me with that? Is it the IFC?
The IFC.
IFC, yeah. So this is something that's really initiative led by our students, but the idea is that this is really, it's trending maybe more than ever. Can you speak to kind of the idea of impact investing? Because I know within the classroom, and we'll get a little bit more to who our students are and kind of the colloquium speakers that you bring in. But at this point, with impact investing, it seems to be a growing concept, and can you share more about that?
Yeah, it is growing. And again, there's a number of financial instruments that want to understand the environmental or social impact that they create by making the investment. So if I invest in a jobs program in a city, through a municipal bond issuance, not only do I want the return on that bond, as of course, but I also want to understand how many jobs I've created. I want to understand how much I've influenced economic inequality in that city as an investor. And investors take really different perspectives on it. Some are much more on I got to make sure I make money, and it's nice to know I made an impact. To other investors, and a growing number, that are saying, yes, I want to make I want return on my capital, but I'm really very interested in the impact. So the response to that desire in the investment community has been growing exponentially. So there's an enormous amount of work and effort, research, and money going into impact investing and the metrics of impact investing. So our students have picked up on it. They're not. You don't close yourself off when you come into Yale. They're very aware. So a group of them have picked this conference up for the second year, and the conference is astounding. They've got at least one Nobel laureate is going to come to speak. They've got an amazing list of speakers and panelists lined up. It's always oversubscribed. That generates energy and interest across campus. So that's April 5th, I believe. Yeah. So that's, and as you say, totally run by students. They come to the faculty and say, tell us if they want us.
Well, so you're all invited to that. If you can sign up online if you'd like to join. So I'm skipping a little bit forward. I know that part of the role is really to ensure that students are hearing from leadership within sustainability. And so we have a select group here just to present. I know that there are others. How do you make these connections with all of these leaders who come in, and what's the intention?
Well, yeah, two answers. I make the connections because the Yale community is vast and well networked, and there's a lot of people that love to interact with this community. The students are exceptional, the faculty are exceptional. It's a good space to work in, so it's not hard to bring quality, interesting, intelligent people in. I also have a fair history outside of academia, where I was a practitioner for a long time, and so bringing those people in as well. But my overall goal for the colloquium, this is a semi-formal part of the curriculum. My goal was to bring what I call change agents in. So one of the fundamental challenges in sustainability is that you can have this sense that you're fighting upstream. That sustainability is great until it costs money. So we address that in the courses where we talk about and teach on sustainability as a business advantage, not as a cost, and that's pretty well established now. Nevertheless, there can be this feeling that you have to be swimming upstream and trying to change things. So that's what I focused on with the colloquium. We bring people who are trying to create change, either within their own organization, trying to steer the battleship of their company in sustainability, or they're trying to use some lever to create change, whether it's finance or advocacy, or in Rodney's case, a coalition of businesses that are interested and committed to sustainability. So that's the core theme. Beyond that, again, I just wanted a diversity of voices. We wanted, in every respect of the word, from where they work to what their background and experience and kind of cultural knowledge is. We wanted that diversity.
Well, from what I hear from the students, these are typically very inspiring. I think they walk away with a lot of new insights, and also I think there's good motivation to continue on that path, because if you are feeling like you're fighting the uphill battle, like, it's nice to know that there are people who are championing along the way. So talking about our students, we do have a few up here from the last, I guess, the current classes, and also an alum. And so I would ask, just to share a little bit more about each of them. Manka, is it Shell? She's been there for a number of years. She started off, I think, as an analyst, and has really moved into more sustainability leadership. And I know that she's also been a CBA fellow for a time, which is I was really surprised to see that information. But she's wonderful. She's always been a strong advocate for the program. And Dwayne Edwards, he'll be graduating in May. He is a product owner of CARE, which is a really innovative subscription model that Volvo is putting out there.
Shared economy for sustainable mobility is a technical term for me.
What is it? Shared economy?
It's a shared economy, so it's rather than a model of ownership and sale, it's a model of lease. But they're doing innovative ways of leasing where it's not it's not the traditional model. But the idea is that we reduce, we become more resource efficient because we're using more of a shared economy model, and reduce energy use, reduce traffic. That's why I say sustainable mobility.
Thank you. Thanks. And then Anne-Marie Toss, who is working at an energy company in operations and compliance. So wide variety of backgrounds. So I just wanted to hear from you, like, what is it like to be teaching a class of 25 students who are coming in from these variety of backgrounds? What's the dynamic? What's the conversation like?
Yeah, it is a wide variety of interests, of backgrounds, experiences. And this is one of the reasons we do the sustainability systems course right up front, is to level set against all these kind of wide ranges of experience. So as long as we're all talking about the same thing and we're all trying to solve the same solutions, then that diversity becomes an important asset. So we'll have groups on trying to solve accounting methods, and as part of that, assessing what is the risk and valuation for a given environmental or social aspect. And so then the diversity becomes, how do I figure out, how do I determine this risk from a variety of different perspectives? How does the product manager assess risk from environment? How does the supply chain and procurement analyst assess risk? How does the investment analyst assess risk? And the only way we can get a handle on risk in this example is through that diversity of opinion. So just at a really granular level, that diversity becomes important in the way that we address these issues in the class. But broader than the classroom and specific examples, it just creates a fantastic network in sustainability. Like the ideas that flow into the classroom on, oh, well, you wanna talk about green bonds. I was issuing green bonds last year. Let's talk about due diligence on green bonds. So that kind of knowledge set and interaction is really, it sets the executive MBAs apart. I think. So.
Thank you. So along with that, I know that we have about 7 minutes or so left, and I've just been super interested and curious about how you're thinking about all this. So I've asked a number of questions and have skipped through some slides. Please excuse me. So I think it's a good time here to just pause and answer some questions from our audience.
Oh, yeah. Great.
And then what I would recommend everybody doing is, if you can watch through any of the previously recorded webinars, much of the content that I kind of flew through is online. So we do have a couple of questions. So one is, this is a really great question. It's, why do we need a sustainability area of focus? And I guess the question is this in response to things like climate change, and why is this important now?
Yeah, partially it's a result of mega trends in society. So climate change is a mega trend, inequality is a mega trend. Resource use like water, minerals, materials, those are mega trends that impact business, both on an opportunity and a risk side. Um, like I said, this is at the very beginning. Sustainability is a fundamental business practice today. I frequently get accused of kind of taking over everything that I see in sustainability. People say, well, how do I, corporate finance, that's a core topic. In my opinion, corporate finance is about how do we value companies in a new energy economy, for example, because those values are shifting. Today, 25 to 35% of global assets under management now specifically ask for environmental or social criteria before making an investment. And this is a fundamental shift that we're talking about. So, to me, any manager or financial analyst or officer or investor or advocacy group or consultant and advisor, they all have to understand sustainability. Like I say, so there's a core set of knowledge that we've got in the core, but then there's going to be practitioners that need to help guide companies, et cetera, in the space, and that's what we're after in the sustainability track. I think these are going to be just vastly important people to companies and investors going forward.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because as I'm listening to you talk about that, I'm hearing a focus maybe on investments. And so I'm wondering, like, how do you define sustainability more broadly outside of what's happening with ESG?
Yeah, so I'm probably a little biased because my research is in finance, so I talk about the investors
That's
a
okay,
lot. It's a Venn diagram of definitions in sustainability. So ESG is kind of what investors refer to as environmental, social, governance, and that's really referring to a set of metrics that they are tracking to identify where their short and long-term values are going to be best invested in. Businesses have used a variety of terms: sustainability, corporate responsibility, corporate social responsibility, corporate citizenship, corporate environmental responsibility. To us, it's all more or less the same topic or bundle of topic areas. And what it refers to are the environmental, social, and broader economic risks and opportunities that businesses need to address today. They might be external to the business, but they are internalizing because of some force. Either the market is forcing the company to deal with it, or society is forcing it, or regulations are forcing it. So those are the areas of study within sustainability that we address. We take a very large or wide multi-stakeholder approach to this. So investors are an important part, but not the only part when we're talking about sustainability. We also talk about civil society, about regulations, policy, et cetera. So it's fairly broad, but we constrain it to what are the material aspects that business has to deal with.
Thank you for the clarification. Let's see, we have some time to take another question. So what makes a good sustainability EMBA candidate from both an in the classroom perspective and from an admissions perspective? So I'm going to defer to you on the in-class perspective, and then I'll tackle the admissions perspective.
Yeah, rather than say what makes a good person, I'm going to say what does not necessarily required, and that is
okay.
we are not necessarily we don't. You don't have to be a sustainability expert to be a valuable asset in the classroom, right? So we have people coming from a wide variety of backgrounds that some of them have. I don't want to say no sustainability expertise because everyone has some knowledge, but they're not day to day doing sustainability as a job. And then we have some people that have been deep in the weeds in sustainability for a long time, and they're all fantastic assets in the class. In fact, I encourage that kind of diversity and perspective. So that would be my feedback on people who are interested in applying is that should not be the filter to application. But I do think that everyone has a common trait, which is they believe that sustainability is important to their professional life going forward, no matter where it is, whether they want to be a consultant, they want to pivot within their existing job, they want to move up in their existing track. they all see sustainability as a fundamentally important aspect of what they want to do. So that's just the student profile that I've seen is very, very valuable.
And we haven't talked a lot about the admissions process, but from an admissions perspective, we're really looking at three things. Like the first is academic readiness and ability to handle the rigor of the core curriculum along with the advanced management and the sustainability curriculum. We're looking at meaningful leadership experience and a commitment to issues of sustainability, really to have a passion for it, to be driven by that mission. We'd like to see a trajectory of your career continuing to increase and evolve. And then the last thing is engagement and legacy. So how willing are you to fully engage? This is definitely not a transactional program. Once you set foot on campus, and even before then, people are already building those relationships and thinking about ideas and ways to do their independent study and how they might really utilize all of the resources here. So, and then what does that mean for you, 5, 10 years down the road, and how has this curriculum really shaped your next steps and really the impact that you can have on your organization, your community, and even the larger global society. So I think we are almost at time, and the last slide we have up is the Center for Business and the Environment so that you know where to go to find more information about that. Todd, I want to thank you so much for being here and able to share so much in depth about the program. It is really helpful for us, and I certainly know for our audience. I know that this can be more insightful than reading through something online. So thank you for taking the time to do that. If you'd like to reach out to us to learn more, please send any questions to embaadmissions@Yale. And then also we have a couple of ways that you can connect with us. So send us an email, you can meet us at an information session on campus. You can also schedule a one-to-one, which is a meeting with any of our admissions team here at Evans Hall in New Haven, or we're also going to be in different regions across the country. So we'll be in Texas and Dallas, and San Francisco and Los Angeles in mid-March, and then we're certainly in New York, Boston, and DC quite often as well. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to hearing from you.